other dignitaries, and all others who are present here. A warm good evening, one and all. All the programs that we have in our life with the blessings of God will persist throughout our life. Hence, the Inside in-depth talk is again emerged with a great power and package of knowledge. From this time onwards, it will be a monthly program and the link will be shared in the group. And let's start the program with the prayer. Akamsha, prayer please.
അറിവിൻ പ്രകാശമേ നീ നയിച്ചാലും അലിവിൻ പ്രവാഹമേ നീ തുണച്ചാലും അകതാരിലെന്നും കനിവ് നിറഞ്ഞിടാൻ അക്ഷരപ്പൊരുളെ നീ കാവലാകേണമേ. പുതിയ പ്രഭാതം വിടരുവാനായി പുതിയ പ്രതീക്ഷ പൂവിരിയുവാനായി നന്മകൾ നിറയുമീ പൂങ്കാവുകൾ സ്നേഹം വിതയ്ക്കും വയലേലകൾ ഞങ്ങൾ തന്മലതാരിലെന്നും എന്നും അക്ഷരപ്പൊരുളിൻ പ്രഭയകണേ അക്ഷരപ്പൊരുളിൻ പ്രഭയകണേ.
Thank you, Akamsha. Always prayer bring us energy within us. And thank you, Akamsha, for the nice prayer. Next, I would like to invite Josna for the welcome speech. Josna, please. Josna, you are mute.
Am I audible?
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Thank you, Smriti. Good evening, one and all. Respected Principal, Dr. K.Y. Benedict, Honorable Guest, Swami Gurunand, Jnana Thapaswi, respected Dr. B. Bindu.
Ma'am, can't hear you, ma'am.
Am I audible now?
Yes, audible.
Someone said that I'm not audible, that's why. Have you heard me?
Please continue. It's audible. You are audible.
Okay. Good evening, one and all. Respected Principal, Dr. K.Y. Benedict, Swami Gurunand, Jnana Thapaswi, respected Dr. B. Bindu, Research Coordinator, respected teachers, research scholars, dear friends. As everybody knows, we have been having a talk series, Insight Indepth, on various subjects of academic relevance. This program forms part of it. Today, we are having the 83rd talk. This is a platform where people of repute in various fields share their valuable thoughts with us. We are conducting this program under the guidance of our respected principal. I extend a warm welcome to our principal, Dr. K.Y. Benedict, who stands as a pillar of support and strength to us, who has a clear vision and passion intertwined with novelty in all activities of the college. I accord a hearty welcome to you, sir. On this occasion, we are fortunate to have Sri Swami Gurunand Jnana Thapaswi as a resource person. Swami, as a member of the Gurudharma Prakasha Sabha, which is the ascetic congregation of Shantigiri Ashram, which is greatly involved in the spiritual and humanitarian endeavors. On behalf of the academic fraternity, I extend a hearty welcome to Swamiji to the Insight In-Depth Talk Series. I welcome Dr. B. Bindu, Research Coordinator of Mark Theophilus Training College. She is the real support and source of inspiration for all of us. Her brilliance and expertise get reflected in the successful conduct of the Insight Index. I welcome you, ma'am, to this program. On behalf of the college and research team, A warm welcome to teachers, research scholars, and participants. I welcome you all to our prestigious program, Insight In-Depth Talk Series. Thank you.
Thank you, Jolsna. As Jolsna mentioned, today's research person is an exceptional personality in our research wing. To introduce our chief guest of today's, I invite Jnana Praveen for this. Jnana?
Okay, thank you, Smriti. Am I
Yes.
audible? Good evening, honorable dignitaries and dear participants. It's my immense pleasure to introduce our chief guest speaker, Swami Gurunand Jnana Thapaswi, to Insight In-Depth Invited Talk Series. Today's topic is about teach and learn in harmony with the brain. Helping students learn in harmony with their brains and explore the newest finding about how the human brain goes about this. Before I hand over to Swamiji, a few words about him. A noted educationalist and an eminent personality. Currently, he is in charge of Shantigiri Research Foundation and Shantigiri Institute of Training and Development, and also pursuing PhD in the Faculty of Education from the University of Kerala under the guideship of Dr. K.Y. Benedict Sir, Principal at Marthiaphilus Training College, Nalanchira. He had completed post-graduation in chemistry and education. He is a teacher of more than 20 years of teaching experience and also served as a principal of Shantigiri Vidya Bhavan Higher Secondary and Secondary School for 5 years. Apart from all this, he is a well-known human resource development trainer and a good philosopher. Finally, it's my great privilege to introduce Swamiji to the webinar and make it a memorable one. For all the participants who are attending this webinar, I welcome Swamiji and let us hear more about teach and learn in the harmony with the brain. Thank you.
Thank you, Jnana. Welcome, Swamiji. Please, others mute their mic till the end of the program, and the link will be shared after the discussion. And please attend the meeting. Thank you.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Swamiji.
A warm good afternoon to one and all. Our respected principal, Dr. K.Y. Benedict sir, our research coordinator, ma'am, other teachers, my colleagues, and all the dignitaries who are assembled here. It's actually a pleasure and privilege to start the Insight In-Depth 2.0. We are restarting for the second time, and now we are moving to from weekly program, we are moving on to the monthly program pattern. I think today we will be discussing about brain functioning and how it helps us in effective learning process and how to teach according to the functioning of the brain. Definitely it will be taking much time. So I'm directly moving on to the presentation. Is it visible now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So today we will be discussing about how to teach and learn in harmony with our brain. So regarding our brain, it weighs about 1.4 kilograms and 85% of it is water. There are 150,000 miles of blood vessels that carry blood and oxygen to various parts of the brain. Every second, there are 1 lakh chemical reactions happening in the human brain. And we are experiencing almost 70,000 thoughts each day. In a short description, these are the things regarding our brain. And our brain, it has two hemispheres, the left and the right. The left part controls the right part of our body, and the right controls the left part of the body. And also it has three major regions: cerebrum, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata. And the cerebrum, see, the main parts are, it has different lobes. There are four major lobes connected with various functions. The first one is the temporal lobe. It is connected with emotion processing. The occipital lobe, it is connected with image processing and visual processing. The parietal lobe, it is connected with information processing. And the frontal lobe, it is connected with our logic and reasoning process. See, the structural and functional unit of our brain, it is the nerve cells, or otherwise called neurons. A typical neuron is like this. It is like our hand. The cell body, the center part, it is called soma. Because like our finger, these neurons also have some finger-like growings, and they are called dendrites, and they branch to finer ones called dendrites. Then the longest dendrite is called axon. It also has branches at the tip, and they are called axonites. This axon, it is usually covered with a fatty sheath, and that sheath is called myelin. All these things we have to see once again. This is the upper figure. The first figure, it actually shows an enlarged picture of a neuron. Information or signals, neural signals, come from the axonites of one neuron and gets connected to the dendrites of a particular neuron. And it is transmitted through the axon to the other, to the next neuron. That is how information is passed. And it is done through a process called a sodium pump. See, the connection between the axonites and dendrites, it is there is no actually physical connection as we normally see, but it is through, and that part is called a synapse or sometimes synapse. And neurotransmitters are the chemical messengers that transfer information between these axonites and dendrites. And that part, that region is called a synaptic cleft, and it will be filled with these neurotransmitters when information is being processed. There are different neurotransmitters connected with different functions. First one is adrenaline. You are familiar with that. It is connected with the fight or fight response. Noradrenaline, it helps us to concentrate on a particular thing or focus on a thing. Then the dopamine, that is the pleasure chemical of our brain, it is largely connected with our learning process. Then the serotonin, it is the mood neurotransmitter. It helps us to regulate our mood. It's actually act as a brake, while the adrenaline acts as an accelerator. Serotonin and GABA, that is gamma aminobutyric acid, it acts as brakes for our brain. GABA is the calming neurotransmitter. And next one, acetylcholine, it is particularly connected with the learning process, and the memory process is modulated by glutamate. Then our euphoria experiences are affected by endorphins. These are the major neurotransmitters in our brain. When learning takes place, neurons excite one another through the release of acetylcholine. So whenever we are trying to learn something, this acetylcholine will be produced as the neurotransmitter. So whenever we are repeating a process, then glutamate will be produced. It is the excitatory neurotransmitter for memory. Whenever we are trying to memorize something by repetition, glutamate will be produced. Repeated glutamate release stimulates the release of dopamine. So one neurotransmitter triggers the production of another neurotransmitter. So dopamine will be produced, and dopamine activates the continuous production of dopamine, activates genes in the postsynaptic neurons to produce new dendritic spines. So new dendrons will be produced from the pre-existing dendrons. So that's the role of dopamine, and that is how learning takes place. Humans will repeat behaviors that cause the release of dopamine, and therefore the connection between the neurons becomes strengthened. That the role of neurotransmitters that is happening when we are trying to learn something, when we are trying to memorize something, or whenever we are focusing on a particular topic. There are some rules connected with the dendrites or the neurons, particularly the dendrites. They grow only from what is already there. This shows that we have to activate the prior memories before teaching a thing. That is why I included the basic facts regarding the neurons or our brain. Even though we have learned all these things in school classes, just to memorize what is there, what is actually there. So we have to, before starting a class, we have to invoke the prior knowledge. So dendrites grow for what is practiced. As we have seen, it is mediated through the production of dopamine. Dendrites grow for stimulating experiences. If only the process is stimulating one, new and new dendrites will be produced. Ineffective or weak connections are pruned in much the same way a gardener would prune a tree or bush, giving the plant the desired shade. See, our brain is the only organ that deteriorates. It shrinks in size because neural connections are cut off, and that process is called pruning. And we will see to it a bit later. It is, and this process, dendrites will be produced, and at the same time, dendrites will be cut off, or the neurons will be produced and neurons will be cut off. These two together constitute neuroplasticity, because our brain is plastic. It can be molded and wired or rewired. And it is neuroplasticity that enables the process of developing and pruning connections, allowing the brain to adapt itself to its environment and become more efficient. What is the need of this pruning? See, it removes unwanted connections. The one that is not repeated will be removed from the brain, so that it gives space and energy for the frequently used neurons to flourish. Also, some foods kill learning process. We know that the neurotransmitters, they are chemical substances, and they are influenced by the enzymes that are present in various food substances. So we have to be very cautious about the food we are taking. For example, it is a practice in North India to call the clumsy people as aloo, because whenever we are consuming aloo or this potato, it will hinder the production of acetylcholine. So we cannot learn in a proper way. Likewise, the tapioca, that is a staple food of Kerala, it is also a hindrance for learning process. So whenever we are going for an examination or whenever we have to learn a new thing, please don't consume these two things. Next one is ginger and chili. They make us more aggressive, and they also hinder the production of the learning neurotransmitters. But there are some other foods that help us to manage learning in a nice way. The first and foremost one is avocado. The next one is dark chocolate. Whenever we are going for an examination or whenever we are learning a new concept, it is better to have a dark chocolate. Can have Cadbury's or some eclairs or something like that, because this stimulates the production of dopamine, and we have seen that dopamine is very important for learning process, for the production of new dendrites. And we know that we learned that 85% of the brain is water, and dehydration is a very curse for our brain. So we have to we have to ask the students to take water frequently so that their brain remains hydrated. So you have to sip water in between while we are learning. And if it is possible, add a spoon of honey to it, so that if you are not able to get chocolate or dark chocolate, it is nice to add a tablespoon of honey to it, so that it also triggers the production of dopamine. I have learned from newspapers that in regions of northern regions of Kerala, there is a project called Tentulli. whenever the students are going for an examination, the school itself provides this honey mixed with water that stimulates their brain, produces more dopamine and pleasure chemical. The dopamine will be produced, their stress will be eased, and they can write the examination in a nice way. Likewise, avocado, this almonds, green tea, pumpkin seeds, broccoli, and especially brown rice. All these help in the production of neurotransmitters that help us in the learning process. Nowadays, we are consuming white rice and um, discarding the husky part of the rice. So, but for the proper functioning of the brain, we have to consume brown rice. So these are the food materials that affect positively in our learning process. So let me move on. There are 12 rules connected with the brain. I'm not sure whether I could finish all the terms or all the rules in the stipulated time. I will try my best to do it. So I will be pacing through the thing, and if some questions arises, definitely I will be answering later. The first one is our brain is a survival organ. It is designed to solve problems related to our survival in a risky environment. Our brain also evolved from the primitive to the modern part. Our brain stem, it is otherwise called a reptilian brain, and it is somewhat 300 million years old. It is found in reptiles also. It is some otherwise called the dinosaur brain or the lizard brain. It is a common, that part is common for all the reptiles. It is concerned with the maintenance of our body function, routing information up and down, that is to the upper part of the brain, and also it is connected with our instinctive behaviors. That is a not learned process, but it is there in our cells. That is the instinctive behavior. Next part is the limbic system, or it is otherwise called the paleomammalian. That means the old mammalian. As all the mammals can express their emotions, it is the seat of emotions. It is somewhat 200 to 250 million years old, and it fulfills our animal needs and emotions. It is a seat of emotions. Then it is connected with the primitive survival functions. And the most evolved part of the brain, that is the cortex. It is otherwise called neo-mammalian. It is only 150,000 years old. Because of that, it is less evolved. We haven't yet attained the full functioning of the neocortex, or the newly formed part of our brain. It is connected with complex processes like perception, planning, attention, abstract thinking, language processing, reasoning, morality. Everything is connected with this neo-mammalian part of the brain. Evolutionary psychology, it tells us that in the skull of a modern man, there resides a primitive brain, because our new brain, or the neocortex part, it is very slow to function, while the limbic system and the brain stem, it is so quick to act. See, for example, the posterior superior temporal sulcus, it is connected with the primitive part of the brain. It can get activated in just 62 milliseconds, while our limbic system, the amygdala that rules the limbic system, it gets activated only after 122 to 180 milliseconds, while the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, usually referred to as VMPFC, it gets activated only after 182 seconds. That means it takes twice the time after the activation of our limbic system. So what happens? The limbic system, it is connected with the impulsive side of our brain. It is charging ahead, while the prefrontal cortex that help us to think and respond. It helps us to understand the consequences and make better decisions. But it is slow in action. And this is two modes of our thinking, that is thinking slow and thinking fast. And this is the name of a particular book by Daniel Kahneman, who won Nobel Prize for these studies. And he got a Nobel Prize in 2002 for economics. Thinking slow and thinking fast. That's the name of the book. See, our limbic system, particularly in the case of teenagers or the adolescents, the limbic system is charging ahead, while the prefrontal cortex is trying to catch up. So in their condition, they are highly emotional because of the action of the limbic system. It reacts so quickly, while the prefrontal cortex is slow to act. It is underdeveloped in the teenagers. So whenever we are taking a decision regarding adolescents, we have to consider that it is not part of their behavior to be so emotional or arrogant, but it is simply their brains that does the mischievous things. So we have to pardon them considering the functioning of the brain. While I started my teaching process career, I was totally ignorant of all these things. So I handled the things in a different way. But after learning these things, I was always compassionate to the adolescent students, considering their brain functioning and their incapability to take better decisions. See, to sum up, the brain is our survival organ. It is designed to solve problems related to our survival in a risky environment. See, it is the strongest brains that survive, not the strongest bodies. Our ability to solve problems, learn from mistakes, and create alliance with other people help us to survive. So, what to learn from this? If someone does not feel safe with a teacher, he or she may not perform well because the lower part of the brain gets activated and they will be transferred to a survival mode. They will become defensive. So what we have to do? If a student feels misunderstood because of the teacher cannot connect with the way the student learns, the student may become isolated, and that hinders learning. So what the teacher have to do? We have to create a safe atmosphere for the student, and we have to get connected with each and every student. Then only they feel psychologically safe to be with us, and then only the learning process happens in an effective way. Then only their neocortex or the brain regions that are connected with actual learning starts to function. Otherwise, they will be moving on to the lower part of the brain that are connected with the survival process. They simply survive but not evolve if they are not safe with us. The second major rule is regarding the wiring of the brain. That is, every brain is wired differently. Even though the regions are the same, it is wired differently. When we do and learn in life, physically, what we do and learn in our life physically changes what our brain looks like. It rewires itself. And also, no two people's brains store the same information in the same way, in the same place. Even though the regions are the same, the information processing, it is different for different brains. See, during the developmental stages, our brain evolves. It gets matured. So in the initial part of our life, the brain appears white in color because of the large number of neurons. They lack the myelin sheath. Brain gets matured by the formation of myelin sheath, that is a fatty coating over the axons. And that maturing process takes place as the age goes on. You could see from the figure that the more developed regions of the brain gets matured only later. In adolescence, their brain is still developing and the developing process is not yet complete. Our brain gets matured completely only after the age of 20. So whatever decisions we are making before reaching that particular age limit may not be that much right. So we have to consider this particular concept while dealing with the youngsters. See how our brain changes. Much things are happening inside our brain. Continuous generation of new neurons takes place, and that is called a neurogenesis. When this neurogenesis happens, it results in the formation of new synapses. New skills and experiences create new neural connections. And these synapses get strengthened by repetition. Repetition and practices strengthens this neural connection. But the connections in the brain that aren't used becomes weak. So, and this process, the entire process, that is called neuroplasticity. This neuroplasticity can result from our traumatic events in our life, the stress we are undergoing, the nature of the social interaction we are having. Meditation process largely influences the brain. Then our emotions, the learning process, how we are focusing or paying attention, our diet, as we have already discussed, exercise, and the new experiences. All these influence the wiring of the brain. So all these processes influence the neuroplasticity of the brain. Next rule is regarding the attention. We don't pay attention to boring things. So I am not sure whether this presentation is a boring one or not, whether you are paying attention or not. I am not sure, because I just can't see your faces and interact with you directly. That's a limitation of this new age media. But we can get attention by invoking emotions, providing novelty, and providing patterns and presenting challenges. So these are the 4 things that activates the brain to attention: emotions, novelty, patterns, and challenges. Let's have a look. Can any one of you read the colors, not the words, but the colors?
Green, red, blue, yellow, blue, black, red, green, blue, brown, purple, red, green, blue, yellow, black, purple, brown.
Now read the words. Simply read the words.
Yellow, blue, orange, black, red, green, purple,
Okay,
yellow.
that's enough. That is enough. You're excellent.
I am Sapna.
May I know your good
Swamiji.
name? Okay.
The second one
See,
was easier.
which one is easier, the first one or the second one?
Because I think
Why it is so?
we can easily read
Because
the words.
We don't. There, it needs not cognition. But in the first case, we have to take a decision. We have to see it. We have to discriminate the words and the color, take a small decision regarding that, and then we have to tell. So it is difficult to process. So it's actually a challenging process of the brain, and it needs attention. And this particular effect is called a Stroop effect. So we have our brain loves challenges, and if only things are presented in a challenging way, it gets attention and gets activated. So what happens when there are challenges? See, acetylcholine is released at its highest when the brain is engaged with more challenging mental tasks. We'll see about this later. So the neurons get potentiated, more potential will be generated when acetylcholine is released. So we have to present new concepts as challenges, or we have to engage the brain. We have to engage the brain before starting a new thing. Why it is so? Because we are always in an autopilot mode. And that mode is called a default mode, or the task negative network. It involves many regions, MPFC, PCC. MPFC means medial prefrontal cortex, TPJ, that is temporoparietal junction, PCC. All these names are not enough, not needed, but you have to know that normally we are in the autopilot mode, and it is connected with our mind wandering, the daydreaming process, the rumination process. We are constantly thinking about the past or thinking about the future plans, then contemplating on a particular thing. Then we will be thinking about how other people are thinking about us. That is called a theory of mind. then moral decisions, all these are connected with our autopilot mechanisms. We could see that whenever the teacher is presenting in the class, they simply sit and dream. They will be look into the eyes of the teacher, have a small smile on their face, but the mind will be wandering. It happens because of the action of this default mode network. And from the figure, you could see that it takes up or it involves the lower part of the brain. But whenever we are having a challenging process, our attention mode gets activated, or the task positive networks get activated. It is connected with focus, presence of mind, planning, our working memory, and generally referred to as the executive functions. It takes up the upper part of the brain or the more evolved part of the brain, but it needs much energy. Our brain follows the low energy principle. This default mode needs less energy and it will be active at all the times. Whenever we are not particularly focusing on a particular thing, this default mode will be ruling us. But whenever we are focusing deliberately on a particular thing, then we will switch on to task positive network, and that switching is done by yet another network called salience network. It sees that everything is, if it feels that everything is okay and comfortable and safe, we will be automatically switching on to default mode. If it is a challenge, then this attention mode will be switched on. To know that whenever, where more accident takes place, on a highway or in a bumper to bumper traffic in the city, where more accidents happens?
In the highway.
Why it is so? We could say that the speed is more in highway, but thing is different. While we are driving in the bumper to bumper traffic in a city, we will be activating the attention mode. We are highly cautious and errors will be less. But whenever we feel safe in a highway, we will switch on to this default mode, and we will automatically move on to an attention mode. While we are driving, we will be hearing the music, we will be thinking about some other things, and our decision making time will be, or response time will be larger. So what happens? Accidents naturally happens. So to be effective, we have to activate the attention mode. So we have to bring about emotions, we have to bring about novelty, we have to present them with good patterns in our learning. So our brain can connect to only one thing. So multitasking is a real myth. With body we can do multitasking, but with brain it cannot be done effectively. It is found through research that it takes 50% longer to complete a task if you are multitasking or if you are interrupted. And we also make 50% more errors if we are interrupted during a job. So we would be more efficient without interruptions, because our attention mode can concentrate only to a particular thing at a time. Many children nowadays try to multitask, but it decreases their efficiency. Next one, we are wired to notice patterns. See, try to understand what these letters are. Can anyone tell what it is? Definitely it will be difficult, but now the same letters, they are presented as a pattern now. Definitely you could read it and understand what it is. So from the mess of letters, we have identified a pattern, and it is easy for the brain to understand that particular pattern. Fourth, this particular thing has to be employed in the education process also, and that is called chunking. This chunking involves creating more meaningful patterns from seemingly random bits of information, and therefore it is memorable. See, our working memory, it is called the golden rule of working memory. That is, it can handle 7 plus or minus 2. That is, at least 5 information to the minimum and 9 information to the maximum. The word information, what is actually information? Information is data information. Information is actually data information. If only we are collecting the data in a meaningful pattern, it becomes information. So we are actually doing a chunking process there whenever we are ordering it. So our brain can handle only 5 or 7 or to a maximum 9 things. But if you are connecting to a particular concept with other finer concepts, we can take up more things. I will show you that. So, and that is called a concept map. They have to be a main concept which is having a hierarchical structure, and these concepts can be interconnected with arrows, and such a thing is called a concept map. There occurs an ordering of the total entire matter we have to learn. So we have to present a particular chapter as a concept map. Then it will be easy for the students to take it up. Otherwise, they will be mugging up the question answers. And this mode of teaching is called concept learning or concept teaching. So we have, instead of presenting question answers, we have to present the entire chapter as a general concept. If there is no hierarchical ordering of ideas, or if the ideas are equally relevant, we have to use mind maps. As many of you are familiar with, it is devised by Tony Buzan. So we can use mind maps if there is no hierarchical order, and if there is a hierarchical order, we have to use concept map to present a general concept. This is an example of how matter can be classified. And this particular thing, it is from 8th standard science. And this is how the concept map of Newton's laws of motion. That's also from the school classes, both in 9th standard and in 11th standard, the students have to learn. So the entire chapter can be presented as a concept map. So we have to get ordered. The information has to be ordered in a either as mind maps or concept maps, and have to be presented so that it will be easy for the brain to catch up. So while teaching, please keep this particular thing in your mind. Then another one is the brain needs a break. It cannot perpetually function. It needs breaks. So through research, it is established that it is called the 10-minute rule. In the beginning stage, our concentration will be maximum, but gradually our attention decreases and decreases and decreases. And it will be maximum at the beginning and maximum at the end, but in between it will be lagging. So we have to take breaks, and it must be emotionally relevant. You have to crack a joke or do a different thing, or at least make them stand up or do some activities, just to make a break. So as you can see the pictures, one long session, it will be like the first figure, that is the level of recall will be high at only at the beginning and at the end. But if you are applying breaks, more things can be taken up into the mind. So try to add emotional breaks between classes, even though I am not doing it now. The fourth rule, that is regarding the memory, that is, we have to repeat to remember, and we have to remember to repeat. Brain research by Ebbinghaus found that things are getting forgotten from our brain and that follows a definite pattern. It gradually decreases. How the retention ability gradually decreases. So it follows a pattern. After 20 minutes, it becomes some 70%. After 1 hour, it becomes almost 50%. In 9 hours, it reduces to 40%. And as time goes on, the extent decreases and decreases and decreases. So we have to recall things in these time limits. It is called a spaced repetition. Nowadays, many a times the students are constantly repeating while they are learning. But that is called mugging up. They constantly repeatedly say the thing or write the thing at a particular moment. In the night, they will be constantly learning and going for the examination, but nothing will come to their mind in the examination hall. The thing is that we have to learn in advance. Immediately after the class, we have to remember the thing. That means before the teacher is leaving the class, he or she has to summarize the entire thing that is taught in the class. before the bell rings, we have to plan the class and we have to sum up all the things that are presented to the students in a hierarchical fashion or in a patterned manner. It will make easy for the student to understand and later process it. So after 24 hours, not after 24, before 24 hours. So they have to learn it when they are at night, they have to learn it once more and then go to sleep. Definitely we'll be discussing about sleeping later. And in the morning, they have to, without opening the book, they have to remember what they have learned at night and try to write it down. It helps the ordering of the information. Simply recalling in the mind may not work. You have to write it down so that it gets in an ordered fashion. So that you have to make that particular type of learning a routine. Learn at night, have a good sleep, and in the morning, try to recall the thing. If you are not able to recall from the mind, then go back to the lessons and revise it. Then we have to revise it 1 week later or sooner. Then 1 month later or sooner. So at least for 5 times, I am adding a break at 12 hours. At least for 5 times, we have to repeat the same thing. Then only we are able to memorize the thing in the proper way. So what happens when we are repeating? It is called the process happening inside the brain. It is called a long-term potentiation. We have seen this particular thing earlier also. More acetylcholine will be released when we are concentrating. After one neuron stimulates another repeatedly, it takes less signal strength to stimulate the receiving neuron in the future. This long-term potentiation occurs because the receiving neuron develops more neurotransmitter receptors. So more receptors will be produced at the dendrites, and that makes easy for us to recall the thing better. So we have to remember to repeat and repeat to remember. There are different types of memories: short-term memory, long-term memory, and long-lasting memory. See, this sensory memory, we are getting information through our senses. It without repetition, it can last only to 0.5 to 3 seconds, and it will be normally forgotten from our mind. If only we are paying attention, it will be transferred to the working memory. So if the default mode is active, nothing will go into our mind. If only we are activating the attention mode or task positive network, it will move to the working memory. We can have 7 to 9 chunks of information in our working memory. At one particular time, we can handle 7 to 9 information. It can last only up to 5 to 15 seconds in the working memory. But with rehearsal and repetition, we can improve the functioning of the working memory. We have to transfer things from the working memory to long-term memory. This working memory is the short-term memory or STM. We have to transfer that to long-term memory. This short-term memory or the working memory is like the RAM of a mobile or a computer. When switched off, everything will be off. We have to write that. We have to save it in the hard drive. And our hard drive is called long-term memory. And it has, the duration is permanent and the capacity is infinite. So the sense organs, the long-term memory, there are 2 types of long-term memory, that is explicit and implicit. When we are deliberately learning something, it is called explicit or declarative. We are learning many things from our life. That is called implicit learning or declarative learning. This explicit or declarative learning, it happens in 2 modes. That is episodic, that is connected with our life events, and semantic, words, ideas, concepts that we are deliberately learning. And I think it is called Anderson model. This non-declarative information, it involves, it takes up the procedural skills we are learning. If we are learning to cycle, it will be there in our, it will remain as a capacity till our death. We won't forget it until the brain is damaged. Then emotional conditioning, priming, and conditioned reflect. These are the 5 modes of long-term memory. procedural memory. What we are learning as procedures, as, the skills that we learn, it will be permanently with us. Like cycling, like swing, or driving, all these things will be there with us till the brain gets damaged. Then the next one is called priming. It means a higher probability of recognizing previously perceived information. It is to invoke priming. These advertisements are presented to us. We are seeing or hearing information through advertisements, and whenever we are going to a shop, it creates a subliminal priming in us, and we will be remembering that particular thing and gets attached to that. It invokes our long-term memory through priming. Then perceptual memory, when whatever we are perceiving, it creates an impression in our hippocampus, and it will be easy for us to recognize. It refers to the recognition of stimuli, and is related to familiarity judgment. We feel that it is familiar, but it may not be accurate, because the hippocampus, it has only a rudimentary form of information. Then the next one is semantic memory. That is the factual things we are learning. The semantic memory is oriented to the present and represents general context-free facts. Whatever we are learning through our textbooks, it is going into the semantic memory. Then the episodic autobiographical memory. All the life events, it will be there in our mind, especially the bitter ones. Even though we forget the pleasurable ones, the bitter information will be lasting with us in our episodic memory. So we have to transfer whatever we are learning to the long-term memory. So we have to invoke this semantic memory and episodic memory together. Then whatever we are learning, if it is connected with our personal life through a deliberate effort, we have to connect with the emotional part of our brain, then things will definitely there in our brain as a long-lasting information. The fifth rule is regarding the vision. That is, the vision outdoes all other senses. I go in a pace. If there is only a reading process, we can remember only 10%. If you are hearing, then 20% can be remembered. If you are seeing, 30%. If all hearing and seeing and reading, it is combined together, we can remember up to 50%. So the most powerful thing is the vision. How the working memory functions, this vision, we have to use that in a different way, not through our eyes, but we have to invoke the inner eyes. Then only we can learn the things in a very effective manner. Not the eyes, we are seeing the external world, but we have to utilize the inner eyes. Whatever sensory input we are getting, whatever we are trying to learn, we have to see through our inner eyes. Whenever we are dreaming, we don't use our normal senses, but our antakarana, because all the sense organs are there for the mind. We can see through our inner eyes, we can hear through the inner ears, and we can speak through our inner mouth. So for moving things to the long-term memory, instead of the sense organs, we have to use our inner eyes and inner voice. Then only we are able to process the information in a deep manner and remember it in the required way. I'm skipping all these things because now we have reached the limit of the time, that is 6:30. So when it is time to stop, please tell me. Shall I continue or stop?
Continue, Swami.
Okay. So please tell me when I have to stop. We discussed that the vision is the strongest form of our sense. But what we have to do is we have to integrate all the senses while learning. You have to stimulate more of the senses. We absorb information about an event through all our senses. The more senses engaged, the more we will remember. It is best to stimulate as many senses as possible to create lasting memories. That means we have to invoke multi-sensory learning. And many of us are familiar with this learning pyramid. See, we will remember this. If it is a lecture only, we can remember only 5%. If we are reading 10%, then audiovisual to 20%. Earlier, we saw there is a difference between the earlier figure and the present figure, because researchers gives different values in different time. That's why this audiovisual, it can lead up to 20%, demonstration to 30%, then discussion, group discussion, it can produce 50% of retention of the information. If it are practiced by doing, it can have a retention of 75%. And if you are trying to teach others, we can remember 90% of the thing. See, lecturing, reading, audiovisual and demonstration. While doing all these things, the students are passive. While the next three, that is group discussion, practice by doing and teaching, they are active. So if only we are switching on to the active mode of learning process, they can remember things in a proper way. Here, auditory is involved in all the session and all the processes. Visual is involved, and the kinesthetic part is active, only in the active learning. So we have to use learning experiences. We have to create learning experiences like the active part of the learning pyramid. We have to invoke auditory, visual, and kinesthetic skills of the students. Then only they could remember the things, they learned things in a proper fashion. The seventh one is music. Study or listen to boost your cognition. That means, I have a habit of, from earlier days onwards, while I was a student in school time, I used to play music in a soft manner. Without knowing all these things, I had the habit. But my amma, she constantly scolds me while playing the music. I think many of you also have the same experience in life. But the real thing is that whenever we are hearing music, it activates our brain. Our memory will be activated, and our attention to details also get increased. So our learning abilities will increase if you are hearing music, but it must not be of a disturbing one, a soft music. And it was found that Beethoven's symphony can help us largely in the cognition process while we are learning. So this particular thing is advocated by many people, to hear music along with while you are, especially when you are doing mathematics, because both music and mathematics, they will activate the same regions of the brain, so they will be mutually helpful. The next one is exercise. Exercise boosts the brain power. Whenever we are sitting idle, so we have been sitting idle for the last 1 hour, and our brain will be like this. Whenever we are sitting, it may not be active. Circulation to the brain gradually decreases. But after 20 minutes of walking, brain rushes to the blood rushes to the brain, and it gets more activated. And we could see that there is no greater anti-brain environment than a classroom, because many times during the lecture classes, students are simply sitting with an idle brain in their autopilot mode or in the default mode. So before exercise, the brain patterns are like this. The first figure, after 2 weeks, the number of dendrites increases. After 2 months, the exercise immensely increases the number of dendrites. So what are the brain benefits of exercise? See, it increases the production of neurochemicals that promote brain cells. We will see that it is called BDNF. That it improves memory, it lengthens the attention span, it boosts our decision-making skills, it prompts growth of new nerve cells and blood vessels, and it also improves multitasking and planning. So these are the health benefit of exercises. That is why CBSE has added two I just forgot the name for that particular period. So, drill period. Earlier, we had only one drill period in a week, but nowadays they have added 2 drill periods in each week because exercise is very much helpful for the learning process. See, exercise positively influences our brain. It helps in the neurogenesis, that is creating new neurons. It improves how the existing neurons work, that is, it improves the neuroplasticity, and also it helps in the release of neurotransmitters that improve the brain function. That is, it influences the neurochemistry also. Many new the entire chemistry changes when we are undergoing the exercise process. I later mentioned this BDNF, that is a brain-derived neurotropic factor. It is a brain protein that regulates synaptic plasticity, which is important for learning and memory. And it acts as a fertilizer for brain. Then the serotonin, it helps us in the motivation and willpower, and it is the mood regulating neurotransmitter. Norepinephrine for energy and concentration. Then dopamine, as we have seen, for pleasure, focus, and decision making. See, whenever we are dancing or exercising, we feel a pleasure because dopamine is produced. And also it reduces the accelerating hormones, that is the cortisol and the adrenaline. So it is very important for us to exercise while we are engaged in a learning process. So there are different exercises that can activate the brain, and they are called neurobics. So I'm just leaving it because of the lack of time. See, could see that this particular figure, it shows like an 8 or infinity. Whenever we are, now please stretch your right hand and draw an infinity figure or the figure like 8, and you have to follow, your eye has to follow the tip of your finger. So whenever you are doing is, you have to draw big 8 in front of you or infinity in front of you. Whenever you are doing this, both our body and our brain, it shifts the focus from left to right. This increases the coordination between the left and right brain. And this particular thing, that is in Kerala or in India, it is called Ethamidal. It is crossing your finger, your arms to left and touching the left and right ears and just moving up and down. Here we also cross the legs. Actually, it is done as an offering to Ganesha, but it is a very interesting thing to note that Ganapati or Ganesha, he has 2 wives. One is called Buddhi and the second one is called Siddhi. Buddhi, it is actually connected to the left brain, that is the systematic thinking, and the right brain, that is connected with Siddhi, that is creative thinking. Both hemispheres, the left and right, gets activated whenever we are crossing the arms and crossing the legs and moving up and down. And it is called super brain yoga. And this particular exercise is practiced after brain surgeries. So that activates both the hemispheres of the brain and help us to memorize things and keep our brain healthy. And there are brain gym exercises. I'm just skipping it. Just tell only the main things. There are different types of brain exercises. First of all, we have to drink a glass of water. As we have seen earlier that 85% of the brain is water. It energizes our body and the brain. Then the next part, pace. We have to think in the reverse order, ECAP. Even though it is PACE, you have to start with energizing ourselves by drinking water, then doing brain buttons. That means just beneath the collar button, there is a soft region. You have to press that particular region with your left fingers. At the same time, you have to keep your right hand on the navel. If you are just pressing it, then you will be activating the vagus nerve. This vagus nerve is connected with brain and the entire internal organs. So it activates the brain and the entire body. So that is the use of doing brain buttons. Next is the cross crawl, that is the crossing. I could see the figure of a girl doing cross crawl. That is your left elbow will be touching your right knee. So the body will be crossing and the brain gets activated. Then hookups. I will show you how to do hookups. Here also, the symmetry of the body is crossed, and that also activates the brain. So these are all brain gym exercises that also helps in the proper functioning or the activation of the brain. Then the ninth rule is exploration. I will make it fast. So we are natural and powerful explorers of our life, especially children. Their play is actually connected with exploration of new things. So explorative learning must be employed. The best teachers encourage children to learn not through flashcards or drills, but through exploration. So we have to do that particular thing. Then sleep is very essential. Actual branching of the nerve cells occur primarily at night during sleep. So sleeping is very essential. Sleeping after learning grows twice as many neural death rates as learning the material did. Those who are sleep deprived after learning new information are unable to process and use the information properly. Whenever we are sleeping, our brain is not sleeping, but it is arranging the information according to a particular pattern. So what happens? You could see from the figure that if you are awake after learning, it will gradually decrease according to the Ebineau's forgetting curve. But if you are asleep, things will go deep into the brain and get ordered, and we could remember things more effectively. So sleeping is a must for the learning process. Then regarding stress, the stressed brain cannot learn. We have discussed that earlier also. Brain is built to deal with stress only for about 30 seconds. The brain is not designed for long-term stress, and stress damages virtually every kind of cognition. It damages memory and executive function. When we are stressed, it can also hurt our motor skills, and it disrupts our immune system and gets sicker more often. And also it disrupts our ability to sleep. I'm skipping it. See, you could see from the figure that an abused brain or a stressful brain, many of the brain regions get inactivated. When we are stressed, the lower part of the brain gets activated, especially the amygdala. It will cut short the brain's blood circulation to the frontal part of the brain by 30%. And our reasoning abilities will decrease, and it is called amygdala hijacking. This amygdala, you could see amygdala, they are two small bean-shaped organs inside the brain on both left and right part. So when the emotions are, when we are calm and relaxed, everything is okay. But whenever we are in high emotions, whether it is anger, fear, excitement, love, hate, disgust, frustration, or anything like that, what happens? Our amygdala hijacks and disable the higher cortex by cutting short the blood circulation. Then we will be normally moving to the fight, flight, fawn, flop, or freeze response. Even though we are telling fight or flight, these 5 reactions happens. Flee to safety. So when we are flying, flight, then the flight mode, we will be moving to safety, and we overreacts. So I'm skipping
Excuse
it.
me, Samiji.
Just
Samiji, I think the all the matters that is coming is also important. You can't skip. So
but
we can continue in the next. Can?
Okay, definitely.
From the
Because
stress onwards, it is also important, Samiji. So we can't
uh,
skip. So I think it is better to have in the next session.
okay,
It will be better for everyone.
definitely. I know that. That's why I'm telling it. This particular thing, the gender differences in the brain, it's a very elaborate thing, and it is very crucial in the learning process. We are actually giving importance to the social segregation or social effects of the uh, of sex differences, but our brain is actually dimorphic, and it has a very great influence in our learning, but by no means we could complete the thing in this stipulated time. So by this I am stopping the presentation, and it is off to you for discussion and your valuable comments.
Thank you. It's a wonderful presentation and with lot of power pack knowledge. And I think you should continue in the next session also because there is a lot of thing you have to share with us. And it is the platform for discussion, and all are welcome. You can post your queries in in the chat or discuss directly. All are welcome.
Congratulations, Swami, for the very wonderful presentation with a very colorful, illustrative, very rich content, but at the same time, condensed content that you have included in each slide. I think that the same content is sufficient for maybe around 3 to 4 sessions, because the taking some of the very specific rules that require a little more elaborate discussion. I think that you have to reformulate the presentation in such a way so that you can do it more sessions, so that those who want to know more about, because this kind of functional informations are very less or it's not easily available for students and research scholars. So you try your best to make it in 2 or 3 presentations, taking the essence, keeping concentration on those particular things that you require more time. Congratulations. And you have given a very good restart for the Insight Indepth program, even though my expectation of audience has not reached, but only those who deserve will be attending. Others may join at the last moment to show their presence, and even sometimes a few may be joining for the certificate alone. That's part of the game. Anyway, the research scholars must take initiative to communicate the message to many other groups and other research scholars from different departments. Not only from the field education alone, you can go to other allied disciplines also. There may be associations of research scholars in the University of Kerala or in many other universities in Kerala and beyond that. I am happy to see that our Vasavs are from far away have joined this program. I think that I welcome Vasavs to have a quick response to the presentation. Congratulations to the organizers.
Thank you, sir, for the valuable comments.
Thank you, sir.
Swamiji, I know that we have a time constraint, but I would like to clarify on one question. That is, how far are these brain-friendly teaching methods important in improving the learning experience for children with attention deficit?
See, it is there in the name itself. Attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Many students are nowadays, many children are facing that particular problem because they are not able to switch on to the attention mode, and they are not able to sustain in that particular mode. For them, you have to practice meditation or mindfulness so that they see. The gift of the brain is that it can be wired, even though with the difficulty, with practice and practice and practice, the brain muscles can be strengthened. So it will be initially difficult for them to sit and learn, to concentrate. So instead of trying to concentrate them on the lessons and the factual things they have to learn, please let them sit in meditation, or not meditating but simply mindfulness. See, there are different exercises that are available for us to do mindfulness. So by activating all these things gradually and gradually, their attention mode will increase. They will get the uh, power, or they will get the skill to switch on to this attention mode. So we can definitely improve their attention span through these grounding exercises are there. And it is called grounding. You have to go back to the basics. From the higher levels of thinking, you have to go back to your body and get your brain eased. It is called, it's a mode of mindfulness exercise. If you are practicing these things, the brain will gradually develop the capacity. After that, we could move on to all these things.
Thank you. Thank you, Swamiji.
Good evening, Swamiji. It was a wonderful talk. I was listening to the whole session as a parent. So it was very useful for me because actually this is very much important for parents. Pardon? So congratulations, Swamiji. Thank you for this session.
Thank you.
Participants, do you have any more questions to be cleared?
So maybe may I ask?
Yes, sir. Yeah, please.
Okay. No, thank you. Swamiji, I just joined in late. I just saw the different. The last part only I have actually seen. There is a difference that you actually exhibited with regard to the male and the female part of the brain. So you are actually saying that the learning centers are concentrated differently. This is your finding with regard to that. If that is the perspective, then do you only be designing learning materials and the necessary things based on gender differences that exist?
Definitely, that is called gender sensitive pedagogy. But nowadays, we are misunderstanding what it is, what is gender sensitive pedagogy. We are socially sensitizing, but we are not sensitive to the brain differences. It's a very elaborate session. Nowadays, even though our government has taken some initiatives to ban or to avoid girls and boys school and to have mixed schools, both boys and girls learn differently. The brain makeup is entirely different. So brain scientists are now recommending boys classes and girls classes separately. The learning experiences, it must be designed in different ways. Actually, it is a very elaborate session. As Benedict has told that we could handle in a different session. It's a very interesting thing also.
Yes, yes. Certainly, because when I hear that particular concept, I felt So the relevance of girls studying in a different section and boys in a different way is there, and institutes need to be there, catering to their needs on a separate way. So, it might be the necessary of the time, or might be not the necessary of the time. It's been debated for quite some time, and the current judgment of mixing both of the people and teaching is relevant in the social context also. Don't you think so, sir?
Oh, definitely, it is like that. That is why I tell the same thing. We are socially considering it, but we are not considering it according to the brain.
According to the brain. Okay.
See, the brain difference is inherent in you. You cannot leave that. But the social situation is created by you. It is not inherent. It is created by us. That makes the difference.
Okay.
You can manage socially, but it is very difficult to manage the brains because it is wired like we are wired like that. You have to consider that also while teaching. We have to cater both boys and girls. See, in regarding this particular thing, it is the boys are considered as defective girls in the field of learning.
Okay.
Girls are the gold standard of education, and boys are defective girls. That's it. That's a usage in connection with cognitive science.
Oh, wow. Nice. So I need to research upon that. If I need to actually ask you more questions, Swamiji, because
Definitely.
you actually do almost elaborate the study before you do any kind of a presentation. So I think elaborate further sections are necessary in order to comprehend this particular fact as well. Thank you,
If it is
Swamiji.
possible, we'll discuss that in detail.
Sure, Swami. Sure.
You mentioned about the myelin sheet coating over the neurons somewhere with
Sir.
respect to the increase in age.
Sir.
Whether is there any reverse process after a particular age?
Definitely, sir. If you are that is use it or lose it. If even though it is matured till the number of neurons, neural connections will increase. It is called a proliferation. Brain proliferation takes place till the teenage. After that, pruning takes in. The unused connections are cut short and giving space to the more frequently used ones. After the brain matures, this process continuously goes on. Use it or lose it. That is the brain principle. So if you are not using your brain properly in a cognitive way, or if you are not having a cognitive lifestyle, sir, I will show you a picture, sir, just to make it clear. So the cortical thickness increases if you are following a cognitive lifestyle. The frontal cortex, the thickness will increase because of the more and more production of the neurons. But if you are not using your brain properly by invoking the thinking process, the size will be decreasing. So you have to follow a high cognitive lifestyle by not in the default mode. Many times people are in the autopilot mode, simply doing what comes to the mind automatically. But we have to deliberately invoke thinking process or critical thinking we have to do in each and every case. We have to ask ourselves a question: what if? Before telling or doing something, what if I say like this? What if I do like this? What will be the consequences? If you are thinking in that particular way and doing our day-to-day activities, we will be in a high cognitive lifestyle and our brain develops actually. Otherwise, it will be gradually shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. Because if it is not used, the brain will prune off all the connections.
Swapna, I think that it is high time for us to wind up.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Sapna, please, I welcome you for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Smriti. Respected Principal, Dr. K.Y. Benedict, sir, our Honorable Resource Person, Swami Gurunand Jnana Thapaswi ji, Research Coordinator, Dr. Bindu ma'am, respected teachers, research scholars, and all media participants, it is my privilege to express the vote of thanks on this occasion. At the outset, let me thank our Honorable Chief Guest, Swami Gurunand ji, for his insightful, in-depth, and interesting session on how to train and learn in harmony with the brain. Swamiji, you have beautifully explained about the several interesting facts about the brain, like the importance of novelty, challenges, emotions, patterns, stroke effect, chunking, mind maps, and music in learning. We would definitely love to hear more about these topics, especially on neurobics, brain yoga, etc., in yet another resourceful session. Thank you, Swamiji. That was a wonderful session. I take this opportunity to thank our beloved principal, Dr. K.Y. Benedict, sir, for his persistent support and immense enthusiasm in organizing the Insight In-Depth Talk series. Thank you, sir. I would like to extend my gratitude to Dr. Bindu ma'am, Research Coordinator, for her persistent support. I take this opportunity to express my gratitude to all my research supervisors and faculty members of Mar Theophilus Training College, Nalanchira, for their persistent love and guidance. Let me thank all those who have contributed directly or indirectly towards organizing this session. Last but not least, let me thank all the participants to make this session a success. Once again, thank you one and all.
Thank you, Sapna. And thank you all that even though it is a restarting, it is a well begin for the restarting of this program. And all are welcome for the next section on the next month also. And I think Samiji will continue with the topic. And thank you once again. Thank you all. The link is shared in the chat box. Please fill the link and for your certificate. Thank you all. Akamsha, please stand up for the Janaganamana.
नमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जगति तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Thank you all. The program will be broadcasted in the MTTC YouTube channel and you can watch it again. Thank you.
Thank you so much.